Back in December of 2016, I made my first ever Star Wars review. That was for the film Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Season 2 of Star Wars Andor has aired its final episodes. Andor is done for. I'm sad, but it does give me the opportunity to rewatch Rogue One with a new context in mind. This is the Jedi Ranger. I'm John Barry 555, and this is my new improved review of Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. If you would like, you can go watch my original review, but I think this one's going to be a little more polished. And this one's going to be in the context of Star Wars Andor Season 2. And the first thing I would like to express is how Andor Season 2 is designed to lead into Rogue One. There's a line from, I believe, Moff Tarkin to Director Krennic talking about security leaks. We only see one leak in Rogue One, and that being Erso giving a message to Bodhi to give to Saw that eventually, roundabout way, finds its way to the rebellion. But in Andor, we see additional leaks. Lonnie giving the information about the Death Star to Lucen, who then gives it to Claire, who then gives it to Andor, who then together gives it to the Rebel Alliance. Information is leaking, and that's part of what Tarkin is using to justify taking control of the Death Star. It's also why Vader, but with a dad joke, mind you, do not choke on your aspirations, basically tells Director Krennic to get his act together and maybe you won't be killed. And that includes, concealing all those security leaks. But of course, those leaks are out. The Death Star is out, and the Rebel Alliance finds out about it. There's many individual moments here and there. One thing I would like to mention is there's a scene where Cassian tells Jyn that he is not the one she has to convince. He's referring to the Rebel Alliance Council, and as we see later in Rogue One that, she does not do a good job by convincing them. Mon Mothma and Bail Organa and Admiral Raddus are ready to take the fight to the Empire. They know it's coming. But the rest of the council is not ready yet and is unwilling to take action. And that's what leads to Jyn, Baze, Chirrut, Cassian, Melshi, and many other rebels deciding to take action. And then Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and Admiral Raddus also decide to take action against the council. The Rebel Alliance rebels against itself to defeat the Death Star. That is essentially what happens. But all that advice Cassian gives to Jyn is first-hand experience of his own issues getting the Rebel Alliance Council to take his own intel seriously. Intel about the Death Star, mind you. But what I really want to show there is that they establish why Cassian knows the Rebel Alliance Council is not going to act because the proof is not strong enough. So I have a feeling even if Jyn had grabbed the message from her father that Saul had, I still think a few of the members of the Rebel Alliance would be like, nope, not going to do anything about it. I still think there's a good chance that is to happen. But Rogue One is a story about rebels, and as I mentioned, rebels rebel, and they rebel against themselves in order to fight the Empire. But there's another thing before we get to scales that I would like to talk about. When Jyn and Cassian first meet Chirrut, that very much, rewatching that scene, it called back to when Cassian met the Force Healer on Yavin in Season 2 of Andor. Both times he's unsettled. Cassian, with that Force Healer, is basically confronted with his destiny. A destiny that he's not really in control of. He's also referred to as a messenger, I believe, by the Force Healer. And that's what him and Jyn do at the very end. They send a message hoping somebody would listen. But he's unsettled by all that in Andor. He's also unsettled by Chirrut. He knows Chirrut is a member of the Guardians' Wills, but he also, I think, recognizes that Chirrut seems to have some connection to the Force, something that I think unnerves Cassian. And Chirrut, sensing Jyn's necklace, even though she has it covered, and sensing maybe something about her destiny, unnerves Cassian. I really love that character consistency between Cassian. Though at the end of the story, he does embrace his destiny. He does not run from his destiny. But one thing with all that is that Cassian very much, it's not because he's running from his destiny or willing to embrace it, it's because he knows that's the right thing to do. There's also a scene where Cassian tells Jyn that rebellions are built on hope. That scene, of course, was in Rogue One, and somebody apparently said to Tony Gilroy that it sounded like that Cassian was repeating it rather than really believing it. And that's why he included the bellhop at the hotel on Gorman to say that to Cassian right before the Gorman massacre, that rebellions are built on hope. And I think it's fitting that Cassian learns to trust in hope, learns to essentially trust in the Force, just like how in Rogue One, Chirrut, he trusts in the Force till the end, and then Baze, seeing Chirrut trust in the Force and accomplish an impossible task, comes to believe in the Force once again and trust in it, and is able to take out all the Death Troopers on the beach. Yes, he sacrificed himself in the process, but everyone in the Rogue One, that team, knew it was going to be a sacrificial mission. But they hoped that their sacrifice, their actions, were going to win the day. And in a sense, you can trace that all the way to a young bellhop on Gorman who inspired Cassian in the moment that he needed it to inspiration. But we can also trace that back all the way to Nemec and his manifesto, who I think truly inspired Cassian to dedicate his life to the rebellion, dedicate his life to ending tyranny and bringing freedoms back to the galaxy. I think that very much is what Cassian's doing. Yes, the Force has set him on a destiny, but he's also doing the right thing because it is the right thing. Yes, he's not trying to subvert the will of the Force, but he's not necessarily embracing it either. And I think that's very much fitting in how we see Cassian in Rogue One. He's doing the right thing to defeat the Empire because it is the right thing, not because of anything regarding destiny, regarding the Force. I also like to think that Luke Skywalker, even if the Force never brought R2-D2 and C-3PO to him, never had him meet Obi-Wan Kenobi and learn his potential as a Jedi, I still like to think Luke would have eventually found his way to the rebellion. But that's more of a side tangent there, as the heart of Rogue One is a story about people, regular people, doing what they can to fight tyranny. And that's also the story of Star Wars Andor. And when you look at them together and then also bring in Star Wars A New Hope, you're seeing individual pieces achieving a collective goal, but not like cogs in the machine like the Empire where everyone's replaceable. Every member of the Rebel Alliance means something. Yes, maybe the role, their job can be replaced, but they personally cannot be replaced. Their sacrifices mean something. They accomplish things with their sacrifice. Every member of the Rogue One team accomplished something to defeat the Empire. Be it distracting the Empire just long enough, taking out a single stormtrooper, what gives? They all did their part. They weren't cogs. They were not links in a chain, though I do kind of like that metaphor. I prefer seeing them as runners in a relay race. They each have a baton, and they do something to pass that baton to the next person. And that baton passing, well, you can talk about when that began. You could look at Revenge of the Sith and that first baton being the Force warning Yoda about the oncoming of Order 66, or Obi-Wan getting lucky with his Force thanks to the Force. Or, if just in the context of Andor, Rogue One, and A New Hope, just look at 2 children being saved, and 3 adults doing the saving, plus 1 of them being saved. Marva and Clem saving Cassian on Kenari, and Lucen saving Kayla. I can never get her name right, I'm sorry. Or her saving Lucen at the same time. But that is, in terms of the story being told by Andor, Rogue One, and A New Hope, because they all lead into each other, those are where the batons begin. But each character has their own baton. Nemec has his baton with his manifesto, which just spreads to the point where even diehard Imperials who are fully ingrained in the Empire, fully believe in it, are still being impacted, both maybe in a subtle way, but perhaps in a way like realizing his time, major progress, his time as a cog in the machine is done, and he has only one action left. Well, he has two choices, but he chooses the only action that he gets to dictate. That's his choice, his freedom. It's his own subconscious making that choice for him, the choice that he can make. Yes, he could have made a different choice, but it would have been his choice. And he doesn't even realize that Nemik's Manifesto got to him. That's what I'm saying there. But Nemik's Manifesto is one of those batons. How many members of the Rebel Alliance, how many members of Rogue One's team heard Nemik's Manifesto, and the reason why they volunteered was because of Nemik just saying, try to do something, hope you're going to succeed. How many members of the Rogue One's team are there because of Nemik? We don't know. Cassian, definitely, but we just don't know. And that's what's so great about how all three of those stories connect up together. They're all leading into each other and building off of each other. And while the themes do change, they're not inconsistent. They're staying put. And it's all about resisting tyranny, about fighting against fascism, authoritarianism, and tyranny. That's the story of Star Wars. And that's the dedicated story of Star Wars Andor and Rogue One and A New Hope. They all just go about it in different ways. And then, of course, there's the whole thing about Gareth, which is just a great scene as a whole. Really just great to see the first proper battle in Star Wars. Yes, we saw a little bit of Andor and of Yavin and of Hoth, but not like what we get to see on Gareth. And the reason why is in Empire Strikes Back, Hoth is just a set dressing, a delaying action. In Universe, it was definitely a delaying action, but what impact does the battle have on the story, the character development for Luke, for Leia, for Han? Not that much. How much, story-wise, do the Battle of Endor have on for Luke? Not too much. Yes, his friends are getting slaughtered by the Empire, but it's window dressing, literally, in Luke's case. And for Leia, she's just continuing to fight. It doesn't really feel like those are the stakes, but they're not moving the individual character stories going on. But we do get that with Gareth. Each individual rebel gets their own moment, especially Baze and Chirrut. They get some great moments on the beach, but Baze especially because he regains his trust in the Force because of Chirrut's actions in the battle. We get them all making choices to advance the field. And each fighter pilot that the rebels bring, they all make those choices. And all of those choices, especially for our main characters, tells us something about them. Choices they're making in the battle that are impacting their characters. The other battles, they're great. They have their great moments. Luke's turning the targeting computer off in A New Hope. Perfect character development. Leia basically, using her wound to basically get the drop on two stormtroopers in the Battle of Endor. Perfect as well. Tells us a bunch we need to know about who she is as a character. And definitely helps Han realize that he likes her. But in terms of saying something greater, I don't feel like they do as much, nor do so as realistically. And that's what Rogue One is. It's the real battle of the rebellion. You have those stakes. We don't get, except for really seeing one Ewok mourning the death of another Ewok, we don't feel the stakes in the battle, the personal loss in the battle. But we do for Gareth. We really get that with Baze and Chirrut, but all the characters, like many of the characters, we get a moment focusing on them after they pass. We get to see Melchi. Yeah, man, he went so far. And I teared up watching it because I knew what was going to happen to all these characters. But characters like Meshi, who we hadn't seen before until Andor, we get to see his backstory like, oh, wouldn't it be great if he could continue fighting for the rebels, continue living, thriving, and so many more. But we knew how the story is going to end. It's tragic. And that's the thing is, there's different kinds of suspense. But what Rogue One does with its suspense, because we knew everyone before, and especially in the Rewatch, that no one's really coming out alive among our main characters. But they achieve suspense in the emotions, getting us to feel something, feel connected to the main characters. And that's where Rogue One thrives, because You tear up because you care about these characters. They don't feel like larger-than-life heroes. They feel like real heroes who gave the ultimate sacrifice to save everyone else they cared about, and in the hopes that things will be better. And because of Star Wars being an established property, we know things do get better. But that still doesn't mean we don't care about these people and feel sad when they pass in the universe. There's more I can talk about, I'm sure. I talked 45 plus minutes with my original Rogue One review, but with this review, I think I'm going to cut this shorter because I've said the most important things. And if we want to talk about other aspects of the movie, we can. And we can do so in the comment section down below. So I would love to hear your thoughts on what I had to say and about Rogue One as well, and how it connects into the rest of Star Wars, especially Star Wars Andor. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give this video a like and share. Also, consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date on all my latest content. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the Force be with you, always.